All right, like I told you guys the other time, we are going to set up our own Express project. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to close this. Don't worry, I'm going to go into my folder here. Let's go to, I think I have the mentorship on my desktop. Mentorship. Okay. So in this mentorship folder now, I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to create a new folder called, so this is our easy comments. Okay, that's an easy comment in this level. So let me delete, okay, let me call this a different name. I think, Goody Shop. Okay, so we call our e-commerce site Goody Mart. We assume we are building this. We are building this for, so I'm opening this now with VS Code. We are building an e-commerce app for a company called Goody Mart. And let's assume that they are into retail of different items, food, after items. So we want to build an e-commerce for them. Now this is our empty folder. The first thing you need to do when creating a Node.js project, you that would use npm, is to initialize the project using npm. When you do that, I know we've done this before when we are introduced to npm. So when we do that, what you are going to see is a scaffold of your project structure, in which of your project settings, which include your dependency section and other configuration. Now, let's write npm init. When you put dash dash y or dash y like this, you don't want to have all these multiple steps where people will be asking you questions about the project name and different things. You just use the basic default initialization option, then you hit your enter, because I want us to move quickly and get that done. So now we have our package JSON. Now in the package JSON, the name of our project is the name of our folder. You know, our folder name is Goody Mart with space. Now it's taking the space away and replace it with hyphen. This is the picked from the folder name using the fs module. So npm just using utilizing the node capability, picking the name of the folder where it is. You can do this with the fs module, and all these things now are done using the same fs module to write content to this particular file that has been created. You know what? Based on what we did earlier, you can create this file with the fs module and you can populate it with this content. So that is just what npm have done. Now, if there is anything to change, we can change here. Like I want to call our main file main.js instead of index.js. That is just an option. And then we are going to use Jest for our testing in the future. So I could just put here Jest, and that is fine. And then for the all keywords, we could say we have keyword as e-commerce, and we have another one as food. Let's have another one. Let's say groceries. Yeah, this should be a better thing. Let's say groceries. I think we have this the groceries, and let's see, we have something else like put retail. Just any kind of group of words that relate to what you're doing. And then let's say this thing is built with EasyLab by EasyLabs XTB, also EasyLab XTB. Instead of using the name of an individual, we just using the name of the company. And then now we can, if we run npm test, now test is going to try to call jest, which is what we are using for test, but we have not installed it, so we have an error. It says jest is not recognized as an internal area, which is fine. Now we are also going to add some script. This script are things that you can run, just like now I've run npm test. This is the test we are calling, and test is going to call jest. Now we also need to have a command called start, and then what our start is going to do is just to do node main dot the JS. We can just leave it as main without the JS, that's fine. And then we are also going to have another command, and we call this one dev. And what our dev, we're going to use node main. Okay. So if you can still put it on JS, I just only want to leave it like this to show you that it doesn't need the JS aspect of it. And this is the three command we are going to have at the moment. If we want, we can also have a command for install, which is going to be npm install, and that is all we need for that. Okay, so we have gotten our basic setup on the script section. Now we can also put our dependency section manually. We can put express here, but then you need to know the version you're looking for. Sorry, we first of all need the dependency section. So we hit dependency, we have the block where we can put our dependency. So now you can say express, and then you put the version. So you can put anything more than version 4. So you can put version 4.8. This, I think this could be the latest now. So anything up to that. So you can still put this caret sign. All right. So now if we run npm install, it's going to install express for us. So we can put npm install, just hitting the install. But instead of hitting install, what we could do is to run our install command here, script, so we can put npm install. So even if it's like this or run install, it's still going to, which of this is called, it's going to run, do installation for us. All right, so we see the installation is taking place. At the end of the installation, we are going to have Express installed for us. Now you see we have our node modules folder have been created by the install command, and we are we now have different files, and all the content that relates to Express have been installed. Now let's just wait for this to finish. And what we are doing now, you see we are setting up our Express project one piece by piece. We don't have any file in the folder when we started. This was just a picture, an image file that contained Express Node.js keywords. It's in part of the project. So now we have Express installed. We can now create our file, our main.js file. Then instead of this, we are going to create an src folder, src main.js. Yeah, we now have our src folder. Src is just short form for source. So I'm coming to this packages scene, and then I'm removing this code. I don't think it's necessary at this moment. All right, so let's come back to our main. We are not, what we want to do now is to set up our Express app. So we can then import Express. We are importing Express equals required. You know, we use required to import something in Node.js, and then we are requiring Express at this moment. And then we can then say const app is equals Express. We call it Express now. Okay. Now we can equally use our HTTP module if you want, and then we can require it. HTTP module require HTTP. Okay, so we can also say conserver, our server now is equals HTTP module dot create server. Okay. Now, what we can do here now, we can say server. Now, in this create server here, we can pass our app. Let's bring this under. We can then see here now we can pass a parameter. So we can put our app here. Then we can then say app.listing. We're then listing on a port. So we can say we come here now and create our port variable. Then we say it's equals to process dot env. Env means environment, the environment where this is deployed. Then we can say dot port, or this is what we use there, or we just use 3000. Okay. So we can then say here app.listing port. All right, you see that this also can handle a callback. So what we can do here also, we can specify a callback, and then, so at this moment we can then say log app listening on port. So instead of just putting our 3000, we put port, because if we are deploying on the server, the port will not be 3000. The server will give it a port, a random port that is free on the server. So that is what this process.env is talking about. The server where this is going to be deployed is going to generate a port for us. And if there is a port generated on this variable, we are then that is what the port is going to use. But if there is none, then we are using port 3000. So at this point, we can run our code now. Say npm run dev. When we say run dev, it's going to run it using the nodemon command. I have nodemon installed in my system, so it will work. If for you to do this in your system, you will need to install nodemon globally. Okay, we see that we have an error here. What is the error? Cannot find module main.js, because main.js is in src. So let me bring it outside here. Let's put it outside, and then we'll have the src in the other source file in the src folder. So let's begin our code again. You see, app is listening on port 3000. Our server is now running. Our express server is now working. So what we can now do, we can come under here and begin to write our express. So we can say app, which is for the express app, dot use. Now we want to configure express to do different other things we want. Now we could say express.json. Now we want to use JSON, and we can add a different parameter here. We can say, I think it has a parameter called extended, and then we can, I think, also have limit. Yeah, have limit, and then we say our limit is 50,000. What is the limit? Is it in megabyte control? The maximum request size default is 100 kilobytes. So we can say the limit, that is the request you are sending, will not pass this particular limit. The default is 100 kilobytes. If you're sending a file that is in megabytes, it will not be accepted if you don't increase this limit. Okay. So I think we just use this particular one at the moment. Now we are also going to create an express route. What we can then do is app.route. Okay, app.use. Let's just say use, and then we come up with a route, and then we put a callback, just the way we do here. We have a request.response, and now what we are going to do is rest.json, and then we send a message to the person, welcome to Redeemer. All right, so we save our code again. The compilation is on. Now, what we can do, we come to our browser now and go to localhost for 3000. 3000. Yeah, so let's hit 3000. Now, you see the message we just sent. Welcome to Goodie. This is exactly what you were able to do when you were using the default Node.js create server, and then we are doing rest.write. Now, in the case of Express, you don't need to do rest.write, but you can use the rest object, which you see here, and then attach the JSON. And this is the part of Node.js. Everything you see here is Node.js feature. So Express just help us to build our app in a more simpler way. So what this is doing is sending a JSON. A JSON, I told you that everything as an object like this is JSON, which is a JavaScript object. This is the way we create object. Anytime you put this curly bracket, you're actually creating an object. Everything you have inside are properties of an object. So when you say JSON, you are sending an object to the client, to the browser. So the JSON can be an array. It can be an object like this, and you're sending it to the browser. Now our app is working and we have a working route, which is the default route. Anytime if you look at our browser, we didn't put any slash, just the default browser. This could be like something like www.goodiemat.com. You don't have any slash in front and it will work. But if you then have slash user, you are going to order that, which we are going to define as we proceed in our class. But now we now have our default route working, which is a very interesting thing. Okay, so and let's look at how we can structure our project. In our SRC here, we want to have different folders which we will use to organize our project. So I'm going to create folders like controllers. I'm creating folders. Then I'm creating another folder. Let's say we'll create another folder called services and hit enter. I'm creating another folder. I'm creating another folder called models. So these three are very helpful. We can have our models defined here. We have our controllers defined here. And then we have our services defined here. Now we can also have routes. Let's create the third one. We just call routes. Okay. So these are basic folders we have now in our Express project. So let's come here. I think I have just there already. So let's install some other libraries. Let's install just now npm I just. Okay, now in our folder here, in our route, let's go to our route first. We can create a file called user.route.js. Now this route is going to handle everything relating to a user route. This is the way you organize your project. So everything you need to do about a user, you can create a route that will take care of all the routes in your application with the user. So we can hit enter here. Then you can come to the controller. We can then need to create our user controller. So what we do is also the user dot controller dot js. Now, one of the things why we are adding the name of the folder like controllers here is it help us to really know easily what the file is, because we have different user related files. But then when you see the controller, you know that this one is a controller. When you see the service, you know that this one is a service, though it's for user. So we come here and this help us to have separation of concern. We have the related code that handle only the calling of the route in the user.route. Then we have the one that handles the handling of controller related activity. We do that there. Then we can also have the one that handles tasks uh, interacting with our database. You can do that in the service. Though everything is about the user and those user related files, but we then have to structure our file in a way that it becomes very simple to understand and maintain in the long run. So we can have here user.service.js. Now we have three files we have created about user. If we come to the user right now, inside all these, we can have different files. Let's say, especially, let's come to our React now. What I want to do here, we can then have another file called app.react.js. In app.react.js, we can then have everything relating to the app, which we then import in in the main. So here, if you're not following, you can let me know. So here again, we import Express, or here again we can import Express. Let's say equals require Express. Okay, then we need a rar construct. So user rar. I just call this rar type here. Is equals express dot router. You can see this. So now we've created our router. So we can now call router dot get. This is a get request. One of the I will share a file with you guys later on that will give you more detail about HTTP related command. The get is a kind of HTTP method that helps you fetch data from the server, but it's not ideal for sending data to the server because it's anything you send with it used to appear on the URL bar in your browser. If you use a GET request, this usually appear like this and something like this as an ID equals something. All the things you're sending to the browser is to the server is going to be wrapped up on the URL on the browser tab like it will go like this. So you can possibly see all the data the person is sending. That is why it's no ID for a form. So if you're filling a form for sign up and they use a GET request to send it to the server, you can see even the password in this level unencrypted yet, which is not ID. So that is why we only use GET to fetch data. So you only send the parameter that is necessary to the server for the server to fetch the data. When the data is coming, it's not a different thing. But when you are sending data to the user to the server, you use a post request, which we are going to do shortly. So this is our get. Now in this case, we want to create a get request, and this our empty route for user should fetch every user in the server. So what we can do here, instead of writing the code that we do that in our callback, normally what we do is to have something like this rest, and then we'll do our callback. We'll do our callback and write the code for this request here. But then, in order to structure our program very well, what we can then do is to come up here and we can say we have a function called get all user, which is exported, and then we can have another one called get user just to get a single user. We get another one called create user, and we have another one update user just there. We have another one delete user. All right, all these we have to come from, we have to require them from the user service. So what we do slash service services slash user dot service, no, from controller. So controller dot js. Okay. So what we can do here now, instead of having this callback here, we can then call get all user here. That is the function we want to execute. Then we can chain here, Express and JavaScript there, you can do function chaining. Instead of, we can come and have another one here called router.get, and then we specify now a route slash ID like this. When we do this, we then put get user because we are getting a single user. this is valid. What we are doing here now, this is we have defined two routes. One to get every user, one to get user by a specific ID that the person querying the route will send. Then alternatively, what we can do instead of calling router.get all the time, we can just remove all this section and chain it on the previous one. So we can also do dot get here and then place this there. And we can also put the next one dot post, which is a post request. Now you can see our code is becoming interesting now with this chaining. And then instead of putting the callback again, we put create user here, and we come under here again, and then we say put. We want to use put to update user, and in this case, we are also calling the default route, and we put update user here. That is the code to execute. We put update user, and then the last one we call dot delete. And what we also need now in this delete, we also need an ID. So we put slash and then column ID. This column means that the thing is a parameter to be coming as a parameter from the client. So what we have done here is to specify for various activities. Now to make our code cleaner, easier to read, we can then put all of them in in different line like this. All right. So what we have here, router.get. This is the route to get the single all users. This is route to get a single user. This is route to get to create a user. So like I told you, post is different from get, though they are both going to the empty route, default route. But because this is get and this is post, the expectation of the server for this command are different. And what the server is going to do, if it is a get request you send, is going to call this method. But if you send a put request to the empty route, it's going to call this method. If you send a put request, which is another HTTP method also, it's going to call this method also. But if you send a delete, it's going to call the delete method. Okay, so now if you look at, we are not passing any parameter. All these things are expecting parameter. Express knows how to handle this and pass in the expected request and response object. So here it's supposed to get something like request and response object. We don't need to specify this because Express is going to handle the passing of this to us. So what we have to do now is to go to our controller, user controller. So we come to our user controller. We don't need to call all those related Express thing now. Now we define our function. I want just to, what we are doing now is purely functional program. We create everything as function. And I'm going to use arrow function or true at this point in this particular file. So we say const get all user. We have a function called get all user, which we have. Let's let's create this for get all user. Now remember the way we create arrow function. Let's make this asynchronous, and then we put our request and response. These are the parameter we are expecting Express to pass to this, and then we specify our arrow. Now what we are going to do first, let's just return a message and an array, and we put an object. We say that the first one is the name of the first person is Chinedu, and then the email address of the person, email. We say this email is Chinedu at easylearn.com. All right, let's duplicate this so we have more other people in the user, like users in our system. So we'll keep duplicating this now. We put comma to separate each item in an array. Put comma here also. All right, so we now have different items in our array. So here we can change the name now to, let's say, Joe. And then we have also Joe here. We have Micah. We just have Micah. So since we are building for Goody Math, let's just replace all this with Goody Math. So instead of this, let me show you what you can do here with VS Code. This is Goody Math. We have about 3 places we have easy learn, so we can replace all of them at once. So when you click Control Find in the after selecting the item, the name or the anything you want to change, and then you come to this second file, put the name you want to replace it with. Now for goodie mark, and you click this one. If you click this one, you're changing the first one, you're changing it one by one. But when you click this second one, you're changing everything. So now we have goodie mark has been every easy learner has been replaced with goodie mark. So we can then come here and change the name of this one now. Let's say we have another person called, okay, this is for Michael. We can call Michael, and then we have this for Joy. So we have Joy. So these are the names of the people in our system. So this is our controller. So instead of doing return here, what we can do is we have to do rest.join JSON, just exactly what we did earlier. Then we'll wrap here with the bracket to make it a function that is calling the JSON function. Then we'll return. But instead of returning this here, what we are also going to do, we'll have to move this file. We'll have to move this file to our service. So what we'll have to do here now is to say const, let's say const user equals, say user service dot get all user. Okay, so we just call this method. So we are going to import user service here. So we have const user service equals require. Then we put our dash dash services slash user service. All right. And then inside the JSON, we pass our users, the user gotten from user service. So we move down to our user service file. Then we create a function, say const get all users, which is the an async function. And we have our, because we here we are not expecting a parameter, so we don't need to put any parameter there. We can then put this code here. So we'll return this array. All right, so our code is very nice now. So we can then, what we need to do now is to export module.export equals, so we put our get all user here, and that's all. So if we come to the user controller now, and you click on get all user, you see that it's linking to our function. Everything in our code have been linked now. So you see we move from the controller, sorry, to the route, we move from the user route down to the user controller and down to the user service. But now our app, all these things have not been linked to the main JS, so we cannot even access anything about the user now. So what we need to do here now, we can then come into this app and say const, bring in express again, and we say require, we still require our express. Then we can come here and say const router, just the way what we did in the user. We can say express now dot router. Okay, so what we are doing here now, we are importing all our router. So we put user router.use. We want to define the user. Anytime that something slash user, it should use our user route. So what we can use now, we can call this user route. Okay, let's call user router. So we need to import the user router. So we will const user router equals require something from dash dash user. Okay, I think it's there in the same folder. So just user route. Okay, from user.route. Yeah, we import this. Now, if we click here, it will take you to our code here. You remember we have not exported this yet. We've not exported this yet. So what we do now, we have to do module.export equals router. So anytime you export, you call this, you are meeting our router. So if we come back again now to our service, we still hit this, we are still able to get to our router. That is what was exported. Now what we need to do in order to link our app now, our route to the main to the main JS, because it's only what is linked to the main JS that is already part of the application. We then need to bring in everything in the main JS in the app router into the main JS. What we need to do is to export our router here. App.export equals router. So we are exporting our router. So anytime you import anything from app.route, you are importing all this router which we are using to specify all our routes. We'll still come here when we create a route for product, we'll bring it here. By that time, what we are going to do is to have router.use, and then we are going to specify a route which is anything slash product. Once you have slash product, it's going to call our product. By that time, we have our product router. So but at this point, we don't have this here. But this is what we do. If we have another route like checkout, we are going to bring them in here. So what we are going to do at this point is to come to our our app main.js and import our router. So we can say the const router equals require, and we are requiring from our router folder. So say slash src. Since they are not in the same folder, we go to the folder where it is, then slash route, then slash app.route. Now, we can then specify our route here. We can say app.use, just like what we have on at the top, app.use. Then we put our router here. Now, our main route is going to be found, our user route. If we come to the user route now and then log anything, let's say console.log user route link. Okay, I think we are having an import error. Let's look at it. Oh, the require was mistakenly spread in which of the file in user.route. So let's go there and fix it in user.route. Where do we have that? Oh, yeah, this is it. So we just correct it and save again. Okay, do we have another error? Cannot find module user controller. Do we have user.controller? Yeah, let's look at it again. Possibly